If you clicked on this video, you probably have experienced a bad presentation. Maybe you were bored by monotony, overwhelmed with information, or annoyed by crowded slides. And you vowed to never repeat those same mistakes in your presentation. And the last thing you want to do is weaken your message by using language that will make a bad impression on your audience. So in this video, I'm going to share 10 things to avoid saying during your presentations and what you can do instead so that you can impress your audience. And if we haven't met, hello, my name is Crystal Heron. I'm a trained biomedical scientist turned clinical researcher and now scientific and medical editor. And since 2011, I've helped scientists, clinicians, and other professional writers master the craft of writing so they can write with intention and maximize their impact in their field. So the first thing to avoid saying in a presentation often happens at the beginning of a presentation. So a speaker might tap on the microphone and ask, "Can everyone hear me?" Starting this way gives the impression that you didn't check the equipment before the presentation. So to make a good first impression, arrive early to check out the audio and other equipment before you present. You'll feel so much more prepared and confident as you dive into your presentation. Now, the next thing I have been guilty of a time or two in Zoom meetings. So have you ever attended a virtual or in-person meeting and heard the speaker say, "Can everyone see my slides?" Just like the question, "Can everyone hear me?" This signals that you didn't thoroughly prepare, which doesn't make a good impression. So be sure to arrive early to check your slides in the room. Load them on the screen and stand in the back of the room to ensure your slides are readable. And if you can, check out the room far in advance so that you don't have to make any last-minute adjustments. Or if it's a virtual meeting, you could have a colleague or a friend join the meeting and confirm that the slides are visible with a private message or a text message. And if you have the ability to do so, request any accommodations that you will need for your presentation. For example, one of the first workshops I gave, I designed my slides for a big room with a big projector. And when I arrived in the room, it was a conference room, and the only option was a TV screen that was maybe 32 inches big. So it was hard to see some of the details on the slide. So ever since, when I travel to give a workshop or a seminar, I outline the equipment that I will need, like a large projector, to ensure that the audience has the best experience. The next one that I run into several times at conferences is, does anyone have an HDMI adapter? This is another way to look unprepared. You don't want to be scrambling to get the technology in order when it comes time to present. Now, I once spoke at a conference and I was told ahead of time that I needed to bring a VGA adapter. But when I arrived, the only option was an HDMI adapter, which I didn't bring with me. And when I tried to load my slides that I created on a Mac onto a PC that was provided at the venue, my slides were a mess because the font wasn't supported by a PC. So I had to wait while staff found an adapter for me. Now, luckily, I arrived early enough that attendees didn't know. But now, when I travel to speak, I bring every type of adapter just in case. The next statement immediately kills enthusiasm for your presentation. I have a lot of information to cover, so let me get started. When the audience hears this statement, they expect to be bored or overwhelmed. If you feel like you have too much information to cover, cut out some of the things that you want to cover. Keep only the information that aligns with the central message of your presentation and that your audience needs to know to understand your presentation. And I know this can be hard because we get really excited about our topic and we want to share all the things. But you will make a better impression if you don't overwhelm your audience. Another phrase I've heard that quickly loses the audience is, "You may not be able to see this very well, but..." This phrase is a giant red flag that your presentation needs work. If your audience can't read or see the information on your slide, then you didn't take the time to create an effective presentation. So as I mentioned before, test your presentation in the room. Before a presentation, I flip through every slide to make sure it is legible. And then I'll find what I think is the worst slide and put it on the screen, and then walk to the back of the room, all the way to the back of the room, to ensure that the slide is readable. And if it's not, I fix it. And that's why it's important to get there early or even scope out the room the day before if you can. When I arrive at conferences, I always arrive at least a day before I speak to scope out the room. That way I can make any adjustments in my hotel room the night before rather than the few minutes before a talk. You're already feeling a little bit nervous before the talk, and that last minute scramble can make those feelings a lot worse. And then if I can't access the room, I get as many details as I possibly can about the room so that I can plan the best that I can. Now, another saying that you want to avoid is a statement that happens not at the beginning, but during the presentation. So a speaker will transition between slides by saying, "The next slide shows." Now, transitions are vital elements of your presentation. They help your audience follow the logic of your discussion. So if you appear to discover your next talking point when the slide pops on the screen, then your audience will also be surprised and you won't look prepared. So to create good transitions, you need to organically link your previous talking point with the one you're about to discuss. And you might find it helpful to write out what you will say for each transition. So for me, I use the notes section in PowerPoint. Now, I don't script my talks because I think they can feel a little bit stilted. But for transitions, I will add a capital T with a colon and then a few words to help smooth the transition to the next slide. And then while practicing my presentation, I'm more intentional about transitions and I practice them more often than the rest of my presentation. Now, the next statement can offend readers. Have you been listening to a presentation and the speaker says, "As you can see"? I hear this statement most often when the speaker is referring to a chart or a graph or other visual that demonstrates a point that they want to make on the slide. Now, when we present, we may not recognize that although we are very familiar with the data or slide, our audience is seeing it for the first time. So by saying, "as you can see," you are suggesting that your audience can clearly see the point you are making, which may not be the case. And the same is true for using the word obviously. It may not be obvious to your audience. So in addition to having good transitions between your slides, you also need to have good transitions between your ideas. So you want to walk your audience through the slide. And you can use phrases like "let me explain" or "I will walk you through this" as you start to dive into the next idea. And you can also use animations to point out or reveal details on the slide to help walk the audience through them as you discuss them. Another thing that can suggest that you are not well prepared is using verbal crutches. We often fear silence, and so we fill gaps with words and phrases such as like, you know, so, and many more. And these words are often triggered by stress and anxiety, and they can suggest that we haven't prepared well, which does not make a good impression on your audience. So to avoid using verbal crutches, I recommend two things. First, get comfortable with the pause. It's okay to collect your thoughts or be silent for a few seconds. It won't reflect poorly on you. The other thing is to record your presentation and listen to your talk. Don't watch it because you'll get distracted by looking at yourself speak. But you want to listen to your talk and pay attention to your verbal crutches so that you can work on them. Now, the phrase I've heard a few times pops up when something unexpected happens. And that phrase is, "I'm sorry." Now, no matter how much you prepare, mistakes still happen, mishaps still happen, but you do not need to apologize for them. Instead of apologizing, use any issues to your advantage. It will show your calmness and professionalism under pressure. For example, if you're running late, thank your audience for their patience and tell them how excited you are to present your work. Or is the projector not working properly? Acknowledge the issue and continue your presentation without it, or take a 10-minute break to fix the problem. Or if you spill coffee on your shirt, which I've certainly done, make a joke about it and keep going. The last saying happens near the end of presentations. "I'm running out of time, so I'll go through this quickly." Now, I understand that speakers get excited to share their work, so they cram as much as they can into the time that they have to present. But when this happens, they are often overloading their audience with information, and audiences are not very forgiving about running late. The best way to prevent running out of time is to plan and practice. And if you find that you are running over for some reason, skip over unnecessary slides and only discuss the ones that support key points that you want to make. Also, be sure to leave time for questions. If you are given a 60-minute slot, allow 10 to 15 minutes for questions. And if it looks like the question session might go over, you can invite more questions after the presentation or share your email address with them to send you any questions that they may have. So those are 10 things to avoid saying in your presentations so that you can be prepared, look professional, and make a good impression. And if you want more tips on giving effective presentations, check out this video about a book packed with helpful guidance on communicating science in all formats, and it even has a chapter dedicated to presentations. And if there's something in particular that you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments. I create these videos for you, so I want to make sure that I'm creating something that you will find valuable. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in the next video.